know about you, but for me, I have a huge drawer of scraps. Some of my scraps are large, some of them are small. So today I thought I'd make a couple of cards, and I just pulled out a big stack of scraps. This is just a stack of scraps. And I found some that I thought matched, and we're going to make a couple of cards using this, and then some white paper for the sentiment and the card base. So let's go ahead and get started. I am making A2 size cards. Because some of my paper is 12 by 12, I'm going to get my Tonic Studios 12-inch guillotine trimmer. It does have a spot here on the side that you can put this into if you have a 12 by 12 and you're wanting to cut it larger than the about 6 inches that it goes to here. You just pop this off the back. There's these little clips here that go in here, and you just push those, and then this gets pushed into here, and then there's a little foot here on the side that allows it to be longer. But to save on space, I just stick that right under there like that. The handle, if you wanted to take the handle off, it kind of goes in here, and when you get it in the box, the handle is in here as well. But today we're not going to use that. So if I'm doing A2 card size, then we know that our card is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That's the total size of the card. So depending on whether you're doing landscape or portrait will depend on the way that you do your sizes here. I normally like to do it portrait. Today I'm going to do it landscape just because I think they will look nicer. So I'm going to start with the pinks. So I have some pink, some watermelon with green, and then this here. So this is going to be the strip that goes across the center, so I don't need a very big piece of that. This is going to be the top, and this is going to be the bottom. Sizes, up to you, doesn't really matter. It's kind of a preference for you. This one doesn't need to be very big. Let's cut off a little piece. Got a little bit of a curve there, so I'm going to chop that part off. And we can always chop this down if we don't like it. I will tell you with this guillotine trimmer, if you are trimming a larger piece of paper, you are going to want to be sure that you hold down both of the little finger slots here. There's one here and there's one here. If you don't hold it down, then your paper kind of buckles on you and you won't get a straight cut. So I'm going to go 5 1/4 on this one, again, since we're doing it as a landscape. And then, so we know it's 4 1/4 inches high. I'm going to say I'm going to do this one. Let's do this one, the larger one. So let's do this at 2 3/4. And again, pushing down on this so that it doesn't buckle on me. And it's going to be the 5 1/4. So I have my first piece. This piece is going to go over this like this. And then the watermelons are going to be the top piece. I am making this sit on top of both of the pieces of paper, so it's not going to matter what the size is. But on this one, if we did it to the 2 3/4, and we know that our whole card is 4 1/4, then we have to make up that difference. So there's going to be 1 3/4, right? 1 1/2, sorry, 1 1/2 that we need. Math and I are not necessarily friends. I'm going to go this way first, and it's kind of dirty on this side, so I'm going to actually turn it around and do this way. And I know again that it's going to be 4 1/4 inches wide, holding down both parts of my plastic piece there. And then, what did I say, 1 1/2? I'm actually going to trim a little bit of this off because I'm not sure it's straight. There we go. And again, I'm going to hold it down. So now I have this piece and this piece. And if we lay it down here, oops. It is a little bigger, so it shouldn't have been 1 1/2. It should have been 1 1/2, but I did 1 3/4. I don't know what I was doing. You guys were probably sitting there screaming. I said it right, I just cut it wrong. So again, if we stick it back down here, that now is to the 1 1/4. So our first one is going to be like this, with the pink running across the center like that. You could also do it the opposite, where your watermelon's at the bottom and the pink and green are at the top. So you could do it like that as well. So that's our first one. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut the second one as well. Again, these are just scrap pieces of paper. So this one is the lemon. This time I'm going to, let's see, we're gonna cut the lemon at 2 1/2. Let's stick with 2 3/4. We're gonna do the lemon as the big piece this time. So we're doing it to 2 3/4 by 5 1/4. So this is now that top piece. And then the bottom piece, this one will not be big enough. It's not wide enough, so we're gonna go ahead and find a different piece here. I'm gonna use this as the bottom. So this, again, is the 5 1/4. And this is by 1 1/2, and actually I'm gonna go down to 1 1/4, no, I'm gonna cut the other one, because I'm doing one of them with a small overhang and not the other one. So this I'm going to cut down to 2 1/2. And I'm also going to cut this one down to 2 1/2. That way we have that same amount of border, since I did it by 5 1/4 wide. And then this here I'm going to use as the centerpiece. So I'm going to stick it on here and then just trim. So there's that, and then I'm going to trim it by the 5 1/4. So there's that one. Okay, so for now we're going to go ahead and cut our white paper that these are all going to be glued down on. So this is just a piece of Nina Solar Crust, I think. I'm going to do it to 5 3/8. And then 4 1/8. And then this one will be 4 1/8 as well. Okay, I am going to use a little bit of ink coloring, just because since my card base is going to be white, if I'm putting this on white, you're not really going to be able to see any difference in the two. So I'm going to grab my pink and yellow brushes here, and then just gonna grab, looks like I grabbed 2 of Gina K. So there's Gina K Medium Carnation and Gina K Wild Dandelion. And then I'm also going to grab, even though this is a rubber mat, I'm gonna go ahead and grab another rubber mat. And we could have trimmed it down after we did this part, but I'm going to start with the pink, and I'm just going to go around the edges. You don't need to do the whole thing because you're not going to see the whole thing, so I'm just going to go around the edges just real quick. Just to give it a little bit of color so that it doesn't just blend in with the white card base that we're going to use. So there's that. I'm going to turn this over, and we're going to do the yellow on the other side. So put that up out of the way, get my yellow. Again, this is Gina K Wild Dandelions. Just pick a color that goes with or is a contrast to whatever it is that you're putting on there. So like I could have done red on this one. I could have done pink on this one too. The other one I could have done green. It's really up to you and what color you want. So I'm going to set those aside. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my Tim Holtz sprayer here and just spray a little bit of water down there and get a paper towel. I also have a chamois, but I haven't got the chamois wet today, so I'm not sure how wet it is. So there's that. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my glue press out. You do not need this. Just any kind of liquid glue or even a tape runner will work if you want to use a tape runner. Or dry adhesive like the ATG gun or any of that kind of stuff will also work. This is here, so that's why I'm using it. And we're going to line this up so there's just a tad bit of a border showing there. It's not very big. Lots of glitter, and it is coming off, but there's just a little tiny border around there. Okay, so now we're going to do the other piece here. It looks like I cut this one a little shorter than I did the other one, but that's okay. So I'm going to even it up so that it's even on each side. I'm going to turn around because it looks like the butterflies are upside down there. That's my bad. I didn't realize the butterflies had a direction. There is that. And then we're going to use this to go down the center. With all this glitter, you could use both types of adhesive, both the liquid and the tape runner, but I would not just use tape runner because the glitter, the tape runner probably won't like the glitter for very long. Looks like I cut that one a little short too, but that's okay. Alright, we're going to set that one aside, and I'm going to try to get some of that glitter off. Although there's a little bit of glitter on this one, not near as much. Okay, so we're going to do this again. This one is not directional. There's that one. I'm going to put this on here just to make sure because I'm feeling like I didn't cut this one right. Nope, I need to cut that one down just a little bit. I cut it down a little too much. That's okay. What we're going to do then, instead of lining it up directly to the bottom of this, is I'm going to do the same thing that I did with this one, and I'm going to line it up so that my bottom edge has the spacing that I want. And we'll leave this gap there, and then we'll cover it with this. You could put a piece of paper in that little gap if you wanted to. I don't really notice it that bad on this one because it goes all the way across. So there's the two different ones. You could decide, you know, which way you wanted it. The butterflies are flying this way. You only have really kind of that one there that you can see since we covered up that one, and then this one doesn't really have a direction. So now we're going to get another piece of white paper. First I'm going to try to get some of this glitter off here. Alright, so now I'm going to get my stamp positioning tool, and I'm going to use a piece of white paper here. And then I'm going to use, I think I've used this one once before, but it is the Impression Obsession Real Life Sentiments. So I'm going to do the Dream Big on one of them. Let's do this one because it's fun. I'm going crazy. Would you like to come along? I'm going to do one more. How about about to go for it over here, because I think that it'll be, maybe if we turn it that way, turn those two that way. And then, ooh, enough room for one more, right? I'm going to do the hang in there. I'm going to turn that one that way and this one this way. So we've got 4 sentiments. We'll do them all and then we'll decide which one we want to use. I am just going to use some of the Versafine Onyx Black. You could use pink or yellow if you wanted to, if you didn't want to do a black. Do it one more time here. I think that looks pretty good. Let's see. Keep in mind that on these, I don't know if you can see here, there's 2 cut lines. So this cut line is where you have to worry about whether or not it's going to touch your sentiment, because if it does, then it'll cut your sentiment off. So whenever I do this on some of them, you know, the line is more down here, so this would be fine. But this one, the line is closer to that, where the letters are coming. So if I do this, I'm likely going to cut a portion of that hang in there off. Card fronts here, and again, now's the time to decide which one's going which way. So if we want to do them opposite here, we can do this. This one here can go on here like that, and we can edge it with a little bit of the pink, or we could go on this die, we could go up a size and put like this behind it if we wanted to. So we'll think about that one, so we know we're going to put that one in there. I kind of like the shape of that one, but I also like this one. And that one, we do have this that we could put behind there if we wanted to. We could also stick it up here or stick it right in the middle, but let's do the Dream Big. I'm gonna grab my rubber mat here back, and I'm going to do the same yellow, and I'm using what was left on here and then what's on my mat as well. I'm going to stick that down on here, and then this time I'm going to pick it up and just kind of flick along the edges. That doesn't give me as much. You could also use a dauber if you wanted to. But see, it's there, but I don't get as much as whenever I put it down and do it this way. So we're going to start with this one. I'm going to get my tweezers because this is so tiny. Pick it up, and then I'm going to glue around the edge here and try not to distort it as I stick it down on the page. So I'm going to just glue. It doesn't have to be all over. Just don't put too much on there. I'm not really even squeezing the trigger, I'm just kind of letting it come out. And then I'm gonna do my best to center this here and not, like I said, not distort. So I don't want to pull, I just want to kind of let it drop. And then I'm just gonna lightly push around there, and then I'm gonna get a block and stick it on there, just because there's 2 different layers there, because that centerpiece pushes up a little bit since it's a layer thicker. And then I think I'm going to pop the Dream Big up. Use my Teflon scissors here to cut one in half, and these are the Darice mounting tape. I got them from Joann's, but whatever you have, if you've gotten some from Hobby Lobby or from Michael's, or even the Dollar Tree has some in their, they have some in their crafting section, but they also have some of these little square in their hardware section. And I've used those before as well, and they work well. I'm going to attempt to use the tweezers again here. I'm going to move this up a little closer so that I can see. And then I'm going to try to get that centered right in the center of the one we already stuck down. So there's that. And that you can kind of see the frame around it, but then you can also see the pattern paper around it as well. Okay, so on this one, let's take the next size up here, which would be this one. Yeah, I'm gonna cut this one out. We're gonna see here. We may not like it, but I'm gonna go cut this out of this and I'll be right. All right, so there is that one that's just a little bit bigger, and then I don't think I'm going to do any kind of shading around the edge of this one. And then I think we can do that just like that. So let's go ahead and glue this one down onto this one. This is not glitter, so you could use just a tape runner or other adhesive on here. You would not have to use the glue, but I have the glue, so I'm going to use the glue. You can choose to, that is so not straight, let me try that again. It's better. Still not perfect, but it's better. You can choose to put that right down on the card, or you can pop it up with dimensionals if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and pop it up with dimensionals just to give it a little bit of texture. Just going to put one in each corner here, or each side. Go like this. You don't want to not, I know some of them that we buy at the store, they don't have anything in the center here, but then I don't know if you can see that, whenever you push down on it, or if it goes through the mail, it's going to sink, and you'll start to see that after a while. So you want to make sure that you're putting enough foam adhesive on here, or cutting multiples of the larger one to do as your backer. If you have a lot of scrap paper, you wouldn't have to use foam squares. You could cut, 4 or 5 more pieces out of white or black or pink to stick on the back of it, and then that would give you a little bit of dimension too, and it would be all the way across, so it wouldn't sink down in the center there. Now, if you are not great at placing these with the stickies on here, you can put a little bit of glue on each one. That gives you a little bit of wiggle room before the tape adheres, so that if you don't get it on there straight, you can adjust it how you need to. So I think this one's big enough, I don't need it. So if I wanted to put it down here, I could put it down here and not have to put it up over this or over to this side. But I think we'll do it up here like this. Just trying to get it so that it's kind of straight up here. Can't really be straight over here because it's so curved, but we want about the same amount of space up there at the top. And then it looks like I smeared the black a little bit there, or got some glue on there probably whenever I took the thing off. I have a mono eraser, and I also have a adhesive remover. So this one is good for getting ink smudges off, and then this one is good for getting the adhesive off if you have adhesive on there. So since I think this is adhesive, I'm just going to use it, and it got rid of it, so looks much better. Okay, so now it is time for just the card base, to glue them on the card base, and then our cards are done. Okay, so I have just a couple of white card bases. You could use yellow, pink, green, whatever color you wanted to. These are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I cut an 11-inch piece of paper in 8 1/2 by 11 in half at 5 1/2, and then I folded it 4 1/4. So you can have a card that opens like a book, or you can have a card that opens to the top, which is what we're going to do with these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dry fit first to make sure that I have a little bit of an edge around. I have many occasions just went to glue it down and something was screwed up, and then I get glue on my guillotine trimmer, or it's a whole thing. So I always try to dry fit first. Sometimes I don't remember, but that's okay. But I just want to make sure that I have about the same amount around the edge. So you can see what a difference putting the pink down made, so that you can really see the difference, the contrast between the white and the white. If we would have not, you really wouldn't have been able to see the difference, and it would have been, I mean, why have that extra piece? You could have just glued it down onto the front of the card base. So, okay, we're going to go ahead here again. You could use liquid adhesive or a tape runner, the ATG gun. You do not have to use the glue. I have the glue out, so that's why. Make sure your card is opening the way you want it to open. I like to put it upside down. I can center it a little bit better, so mine is opening towards me, which means I'm going to have the bottom of my card away from me. But you do that however you'd like. Just make sure that it's opening the correct way. So now whenever I bring it back out, here's my card. So that's opening the correct way. You could take a piece of any of these papers and put it down here along the bottom, and we may come back and I may do that. But it'll get a little bit extra. You could stamp a sentiment on the inside if you wanted. So this one I'm going to do the opposite way. I prefer, like I said, doing it so that I can see from the bottom. I don't know if the fold gets me, but I just have an easier time whenever I do it the other way. So there is that. We're going to tape these down on the inside. Just trying to line it up so that we have about the same amount around the sides and the bottom. If it's not perfect, that's okay. That's part of the joys of it being a handmade card. And the butterfly, we have a full butterfly on this one, so we want to be sure we've got the butterfly going the correct direction. And you could have used tape on here as well. And then there are the two cards, just using scraps. So we used, in this one we only used 2 different pieces of scrap paper, because this was the piece along the very top of the lemons. And then this one we used 3 different pieces of scrap paper. And then, of course, the white. And then the white for the outer layer here, or the matte finish. And then white for the card base. So, hope you guys enjoyed. I'd love to see how you use your scrap paper. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.